Good morning. My name is David Milligan, or as Annette would probably say, Dave or Davo, and I'm honoured to officiate today's memorial service. I welcome you into this beautiful garden, and I was going to say, but don't tell Hornsby Council, but I believe we have some people who may be slightly connected with Hornsby Council in the community today, so perhaps we can't say any more about that. Look, if Salim Mahaja can shut a whole street in Lidcombe, then surely Annette deserves her beautiful gardens for a memorial service. Look, today is made sacred with a spirit of love and friendship that we as a community bring as we gather to remember, to mourn, but ultimately to celebrate the remarkable life of Annette Tekamaya. We come together as family, friends, neighbours, colleagues, visitors to the garden. A community that includes not only those present, but also the family and friends that could not be here today. At the outset, could I please ask people to have their phones switched to silent? We are expecting a call from the caterer at some point in time, so it's okay for Dave to have his on vibrate. And I will remind people that may have joined us a little later that there are toilets behind the pavilion to my right and to my left up beyond the first landing there. Annette's memorial service is an act of love and a celebration of life. You know what? We don't need protection from grief. Something I've come late in life to realising myself, but it's rather time and the means to express it, to experience it, and to live through it is what we need. And today we will give the sorrow and the sadness that we feel words and music and images and eventually food, drink, conversation, memories, and a sense of sharing. And for some of us, we will share those memories publicly. Others will sit, they may stand quietly and reflect. But together we will invoke Annette's spirit and celebrate a life truly lived. So why are we here and not the Danish church? Annette was a spiritual person of strong faith. But ultimately Annette thought the measure of a person was the way that they lived their life. And Annette embodied and exemplified what some might consider to be Christian values, but I think what all of us would consider to be human values or humanist values, and lived them every day of her life. And those values of compassion, of humility, of humour, of warmth, of kindness, of generosity, of forgiveness, of selflessness, of loyalty, strength, and unfathomable depths of courage are, as I said earlier, values that Annette displayed and lived every day of her remarkable life. Besides that, the Danish church was unavailable on Anzac Day, and there is one member of our group today that does need to be back in Wisconsin by Saturday. But anyone who knows Annette knows that she had very firm ideas on every celebration. And there have been many, and this one, her own memorial service, would be no exception. Lloyd, it must be a celebration, and it must be in a beautiful setting. So here we are, the beautiful setting, Lisgar Gardens. Hornsby's secret gardens. I've been struck by the number of people I've heard today saying, I didn't even know this place existed. I've never been here before. And I think that everybody, the first time they come here, feels that. And this was indeed a special place for Annette, and indeed for the whole Tekamaya Bab family. It's kind of the Bab's backyard. It's the beautiful contrast of the native and the exotic, the natural bush, the ordered garden, the indigenous and the introduced, contrasting yet complementary, and each the richer for the juxtaposition. In fact, about 10 years ago on Gardening Australia, if you're old enough to be boring enough to watch that on a Friday night, Angus Stewart spoke of Lisgar Gardens and he said that the tranquility of Lisgar is timeless. It's also been the scene of some major events for many of us here today. The event of photo shoots, of weddings, teddy bears picnic, good times, celebrations, community. So not only was it fortuitous, but it seems only fitting that Annette's memorial service should take place here, in her adopted home and her beloved Lisgar Gardens. This came together at fairly short notice at a very difficult time. And a team of people have been working behind the scenes for the little amount of time I guess they have, but it seems like an extended period of time to pull together something that will be truly fitting of the life that we celebrate today. And that team of people, many to name, family, friends, members of the community, people who've known Annette for a long period of time, have done all kinds of things and made an incredible contribution to what we hope to be an incredible celebration. I would also at this point like to thank Mike and Riverside Theatre for supplying what sounded like a great idea at the time, was some television screens that we could show some images with the sun behind at some point later in the day. And Dick was asked whether or not he would take his prized LED TV off the wall to bring down to the gardens. And he was willing to do that. But we're very glad that Mike stepped in at the last minute with a whole lot of professional organisation, and thank you very much to Mike and to Riverside Theatre Parramatta for supplying that. So I guess the next question is, how did you get me and not Benter, the Danish priest? Well, unfortunately, Benter was also unavailable on Anzac Day, interstate and not back until next week, by which time Daniel will be back in Wisconsin. But I guess I'm not just some ringing. I do have a long association with Annette and Lloyd and their celebrations, and I feel humbled and honoured to be here in this role today. In fact, I was probably one of the first people to meet Annette back in 1990 in Chicago. My wife, Angie, who wasn't my wife at the time, and I had spent a best part of a year travelling. And before we left, Lloyd was on exchange in Chicago and had said, when you're over and if you're coming back through the States, you should call in. It was one of those kinds of invitations, because I thought he meant it. And the accommodation may have left a little to be desired in the brownstone and not far from West Polk Station. And Lloyd wasn't there a lot, but one of the first things that we did when we got there and met up with Lloyd, he said, "I've got to introduce you to somebody. We're going to meet up with her tomorrow, and then we're going for dinner." And as young, fairly scruffy-looking backpackers at the time, we thought that sounds great. A free meal, we're on our way home and we don't have much left. This sounds pretty good. So Lloyd invited us out for dinner, but first we had to go and meet his new Danish girlfriend, Annette. And so we rolled up downtown Chicago, and out of one of the Chicago high-rise corporate buildings walked someone who could have been straight off the set of Suits. Out of this building, trench coat, beautiful suit underneath, walked a stunning Danish young woman by the name of Annette. And after a long day of doing what she did, she invited us back to her place for dinner, which was in a high-rise tower in the middle of Chicago. And it did seem at times a little bit like a scene from an Alfred Hitchcock Rear Window, as we were looking out of windows slightly voyeuristically, but not too creepy. And while we sat there and enjoyed the view and enjoyed the experience, Annette then dived into the kitchen, still in the clothes from work, and cooked an incredible meal for two of Lloyd's friends. Ange and I concurred after that night. We thought, Annette is a remarkable, beautiful woman, and Lloyd is punching so far above his weight. Our opinion on both of those things has not changed in almost 30 years. A lifelong friendship had begun. A move to Australia, future in-laws, New Year's Eve at the aquarium, a wedding amidst the bushfires of 1994, when, similarly to today, it was a classic Tekamiah Bab function, where the bushfires meant that no one could get to the wedding reception, no one could get to the wedding venue. The caterers on the morning of the wedding could not get to the venue. And so, in a similar way to today, a whole team of people came together to create what was a remarkable wedding for two incredible people. And at that wedding, and you'll see images from that wedding, as ash landed on all of the tables, it didn't really matter. It had been 38 degrees. Half of Sydney was burning. Someone's hair caught fire at the wedding. It did, truly. He was at our table. I was ready to go to the fire extinguisher, but he was providing a bit more light at the time, so it was slightly helpful. And from that, many, many celebrations. Celebrations with kids, christenings, and who else has a Sunday night christening at the only Scandinavian restaurant in Hornsby, where at Annette's insistence, every table of 4 had a bottle of schnapps on it. Birthdays. Significant birthdays, less significant birthdays. Gingerbread nights, honey cake, Christmas Eve, dancing around the Christmas tree, singing songs. Newligans, which we always sang year after year as the Hooligans, and Annette forgave us every year as we mispronounced, I'm not even sure if it was unintentional, her Hooligans song year after year, every Christmas Eve. For my kids, it was the significance of people coming together, and Christmas Eve was always Christmas with Annette and Lloyd on Christmas Eve. Songs, always songs, a song for every event. And a year ago, I was lucky enough to meet up with Annette in Copenhagen, and meet up with Annette and her 2 oldest school friends, Bettina and Sus, and see Annette on her home turf. I'd seen her in Australia for many, many years, known her for many years. And I have to say, to see Annette a year ago, she had her mobility back after her ankle had been repaired. She wasn't going to waste it. She hopped off a train, unassisted, in central Copenhagen, straight to lunch at Bettina's, a small celebration that turned into a bigger celebration, straight out to shop afterwards. The old high school basketball team had come together, and some of their kids, and a couple of ring-ins from Australia, and we were made to feel just as welcome then as we were in that high-rise tower in Chicago all those years ago. We ate, we laughed, and then Annette walked the streets of Norrborough, doing her last bit of shopping before jumping on another train to the airport and flying home that night. She was tired but happy, and a dear friend to all that knew her in Australia and back home in Denmark. She was a remarkable woman, and she truly did live an incredible life. To tell us a little bit more about that incredible life, Annette's mother-in-law. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking, that this is not a typical mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship, if such a thing exists, because I love my mother-in-law too, who happens not to be here today, sends her apologies, but let's get that on the record, please. So I'd now like to introduce Dot Bab, who describes her relationship with Annette as not only her daughter-in-law, but her best friend, and also the father-in-law, Dick Bab, who some of the kids here may know as Father Christmas, and those I may not have seen him like this, who will follow with a reading, smile, because she has lived.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, Annette was my daughter-in-law and my best friend. Annette and I spent a lot of time together. We would see each other and phone each other every day, at least once. We would often be seen with our arms linked, speeding around the shopping centre or wherever else we needed to go. We had respect for each other's opinions and were able to work things out together. But it's the laughs and the good times that we had that stand out in my mind. Annette and Lloyd stayed with us when they arrived back from Chicago. I was quick to notice that Annette had many attributes She was friendly and good company for a start, and she had that good Australian sense of humour. Dick was working at Dubbo at the time, and she quickly nicknamed him Dubbo Dick. She was also hard-working, starting work straight away at an international law firm and also enrolling in university in order to be fully qualified in Australia. She also managed to fit in a drawing course at this same time at the Julian Ashton School in the city. It was a demanding load, and I could see how determined and self-disciplined she was to achieve all that she set out to do. As time progressed, I was to see many more remarkable qualities. After testing out life in Denmark, she and Lloyd decided to settle in Australia and chose to stay in Hornsby. We all think you can't beat Hornsby. Dick and I were delighted. Then came the famous wedding, which Dave has already mentioned. So having been organised in minute detail to suddenly being replanned a couple of hours before the wedding to be at our place instead of the beautiful restaurant at Pete's Bite didn't faze her at all. I think keep calm and carry on was a way of life for Annette. It was during her pregnancy that I learnt of her serious health concern, which had been diagnosed while she and Lloyd lived in Denmark. It was an aneurysm, which had caused her to lose sight in one eye. During her pregnancy, it became much larger. She lived with imminent danger for another 12 months, as she couldn't bear to leave her baby. Her great inner strength enabled her to deal with so many more tough situations with courage and great dignity. The life-threatening operation resulted in further loss of vision and a stroke down the right side. It also led to months of separation from her baby and years of rehab. But once she was out of hospital, while still attending rehab, she made a determined effort to bring up Daniel and look after her Lloydie. Annette's creativity and love of art and photography was an important part of her rehab and a source of great enjoyment to her. The pavilion has many of her paintings in it, so you'll see those up there. Penny Peake's photo scrapbooking helped her with developing left-handedness and dexterity, and then this led on to weekly art lessons in her home with our local artist Lucy Cullerton and art and pottery workshops at the Cullerton property in Little Hartley. Later came life drawing lessons with Lucy at the National Arts School, and later getting her own studio built in her backyard. Her trusty camera was always with her, and many of us are honoured by having one or more of Annette's beautiful albums which capture precious moments in her life and ours. During this time, Daniel was growing up and her priorities centred on dance activities. His strongest interest became basketball, and Annette never missed a game. As Annette gained strength, so did the social occasions. Larger numbers of very good friends frequently gathered around the Arne Jacobsen dining table, brought all the way from Denmark for this very purpose. They included family, school friends, Danish friends, baby group friends, neighbours, workmates, golfers, basketballers, etc. Many had children the same age, and we have watched those children growing up and seen the bond that has developed between them and Annette and Lloyd. Some of the events became traditions which we all looked forward to. The making of the gingerbread house, artistically smothered in colourful lollies, with all the mothers, fathers, sons and daughters. and the Danish-style Christmas Eve parties that went on from when Dan was a toddler until he was 21, with all those close friends. Annette knew how to make children feel special. They loved the Christmas game she organised, dancing around the Christmas tree singing carols in Danish, followed by the arrival of Santa and presents galore. This annual gathering was not only special for the children, but it also brought back the spirit of Christmas for the adults. There was also Easter on the mountains, where there were Easter egg hunts, morning teas with Annette's Danish buns straight from the oven, and a regular meeting at the coffee shop with special friendship groups. I was privileged to be included in them all. However, if we were out, everything was timed to ensure that Annette was home in time to have dinner ready and be there for Lloyd and Dan. I don't think they ever arrived home without her being there to meet them with their meal ready. Annette has had several major health issues since that first operation. Each one has had a long recovery time requiring patience and determination. She has lived with the fear of another life-threatening aneurysm which could occur at any time. However, she made every effort to put that aside, to work out her priorities, set goals, and to live, laugh and love. She has travelled a courageous journey through life and has done so with humility and kindness. Her spirit will remain with me always, as I know it will with you.
Smile because she has lived. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she is gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she would want. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on.
Next we have one of the first pieces of music, because the music was such a big part of the Tekkamaya Bab family, of their life. And the first musical item this afternoon is a song that was very close to Annette's heart. The song is Comes a Time. It's one of Annette's favourite songs. She loved it, she performed it, she played harmonica on it. And in the absence of hymns and in the spirit of a Danish celebration, we invite everybody to sing along. It is in your order of service. Ed and Jenny George will be singing, leading your singing. Rod Tamlin on lead guitar, Lloyd playing rhythm guitar.
Annette loved Nashville. Can we turn Lisgar Gardens into Nashville just for a few moments?
that baby right up off the ground. Oh, this whole world keeps spinning around. It's a wonder tall trees ain't laying down. There comes a time.
You and I, we were captured. We took our souls and we flew away. We were right, we were given. That's how we kept what we gave away. Oh, this whole world keeps spinning around. It's a wonder tall trees ain't a laying down. There comes a time. This old world keeps spinning around. It's a wonder tall trees ain't a laying down. There comes a time. There comes a time.
To follow that, some words of prose, and I've got to work on my pronunciation because we don't want a hooligans moment. Hun est perfect, she is perfect, a poem written by Penny Graham.
Thank you. I'd like to just dedicate this poem to Annette, of course, and Lloyd and Dan, but also to the Danish Morning Tea group, that is Jetta, Jane, Dottie, Annette and myself. Hun est perfect. Hygge describes our Danish Annette as she lies peacefully in her bed, her blonde soft curls swept around her face. She's just perfect, he has said. From the happiest place on earth she came and swept Lloyd off his feet, a magnificent woman of many talents, so much more than simply sweet. She's just perfect, he had said. Her battles faced with strength and grace, but her love of Dan far, far ahead. Photographer, lawyer, artist, good friend. She's just perfect, he had said. Daughter-in-law to Dot and Dick, intelligent, wise, well-read. Our Danish girl we all adore, den schmuckeste, Lloyd just said. Thank you.
We're also very lucky today, very blessed to have Jakob, Annette's nephew, who arrived from Copenhagen last night. He did have some difficulty initially in obtaining a visa, I believe. Lloyd explained last night. That was until he could prove that he really was a French au pair, albeit with very good Danish, and he promised not to work while he was here. He did, however, promise to Lloyd that he would be willing to say a few words about his art and to explain the Danish concept of hygge.
Thank you, Dave.
Hello everybody, I'm so happy to be here today, being able to make it. I had to travel early Tuesday to be able to be here today, so I'm happy that everything worked out, including the visa part. The concept of hygge, well, I think it was actually captured very well in Penny's beautiful poem. But if I were to elaborate a bit more on the meaning, I would say that hygge is a sense of warmth, coziness, and relaxation. And in that respect, Annette was a true hyggespreder, somebody who spreads hygge. And I would like to say a few words about that. On behalf of the Tegemeyer family, who is my father, Annette's brother, Biver, Annette's sister-in-law, Bodil, Annette's niece and nephews, Nana and Andreas, myself, of course, and my two daughters, Eva and Agnes, I would like to say a few words. To our father, Annette remained the dear little sister who, even in her adulthood, kept the nickname that he had given her as a child, Nettchen. Some of you might have heard it. And to us children, my sister and brother and I, Annette was an idol. My sister Nana fondly recalls once, as one of her proudest childhood memories actually, when Annette brought her to work. Annette was working at a cafe at the time. She was studying in the town of Aarhus in Denmark. And one of Annette's colleagues spontaneously said, "Oh, that must be your little sister," which made my sister very proud. As adults, our admirations for the creative and happy and strong person that Annette was only grew stronger. And her presence and engagement in our lives never faded, although we were far apart physically. As you all know, and as Dottie also talked about, Annette was a lion mother who possessed an exceptional willpower and a never-failing joy of life. This made her capable of turning the hard knocks that life gave her into something positive. When Daniel was an infant, she had to part with him to go through surgery for this brain aneurysm, and it was truly dramatic, but the lion mother survived. She was paralyzed on one side and had speech difficulties, and she had to abandon her career as a lawyer, but she didn't give up. She taught herself to write and paint with the left hand, and she regained full language proficiency in both Danish and English. And actually she became to enjoy her new life, walking Daniel to school every day and having a pastry on the way. Another example is that when her eyesight deteriorated, she changed her art style from watercolor to oil painting, and she also became an excellent photographer. Even though she had difficulty seeing the world, she never grew tired portraying it. And as Dot said, you can see some of the beautiful results here in the pavilion. Annette never complained about the terms that life gave her. Instead, she turned them into her advantage. Like when the family decided to get a dog, Annette wanted a small dog that she could carry in her backpack when she went to the shops. I guess nobody really believed that this plan would become reality, but 6 months later, surely enough, Sonny Bill sat perched in the backpack whenever Annette was running errands in Hornsby. My dad once asked Daniel, but how is she allowed to bring that dog into the shops? And Daniel replied, well, a blind lady with a dog and a white stick is probably allowed to go anywhere. As life goes on, children grow up, and when Annette could proudly send Daniel to the United States to study and pursue his basketball dreams, she herself began a new chapter in her life, traveling with Lloyd to many interesting places all over the world. The time she was giving to enjoy this phase of her life, unfortunately, became way too short. Today it's difficult to understand that we shall never see Annette again, and she will be sorely missed by all of us. But the memories of her happy laughter will continue to make us smile, and her fighter spirit will continue to inspire us. There are many more words that could be said about Annette, but I think they are all summed up by a short sentence that my 11-year-old daughter, Eva, has said on many occasions. She was the sweetest lady that I ever met. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Jenny Babb, Annette's sister-in-law, Lloyd's sister, to read There is a Time for Everything, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 to 4.
There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the sun. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to hurt, and a time to heal. A time to tear down, and a time to build. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance.
Now I'd like to invite Brian Elkington, a close friend of Annette's, to say a few words, to sing a few words, and to play a few chords as he performs Fire and Rain and gives us a little more of an insight into Annette's life.
Annette Tecamara was a friend of mine. She and I both came from rather cold northern countries. We both met and married Australians, some wonderful people that took us to this country. And we both ended up being, for some reason, trademark lawyers. And we both ended up working for a couple of years at Baker & McKenzie, a firm in the city. And I don't remember the time I first met her, but I do remember that within a very short time, every morning at 10 o'clock, we were getting coffee. We would go downstairs in the building in the city. We'd get coffee and a muffin. And we would go back up to one of our offices and talk about anything and everything. She was very intelligent, but she was humble and unassuming. She was very kind. She was one of the kindest people I ever met. And she always gave of herself 100% to every situation, no matter what the situation was. I remember, the one thing I remember best about our little meetings when we would sit and talk, if I said something inappropriate or silly or a little off color, she would give me that little, this happened quite a bit actually. She would smile and she would point her finger and she'd go, "Oh, you." Some of you, she probably did that with you too. But I thought it was pretty charming, and I thought she was a wonderful person. And Lloyd reminded me the other week, in fact, within the last week or so, I knew her. Jane and I have known Lloyd and Annette for almost 25 years. It's gone really quickly. It's hard to believe it's been that long. We've gotten together here at their place in Hornsby, or our place, starting on Willoughby, and then Gordon, and just last month up in Avalon. And during this time, I got to know Lloyd too, and Lloyd and I have a little bit in common. Aside from the fact that we're both lawyers and about the same height, we also like to read, we like music, and we like to indulge in the occasional good scotch. I lost my train of thought. That was a good one, though. Anyway, Lloyd asked me to sing a song, much to my chagrin, and I will. But I wanted to say that before I do this, that during the 25 years that we've known each other, it's been a wonderful friendship between Jane and I and Lloyd. We've done a lot of things. Lloyd and I have played a little music. But during that 25 years, or almost 25 years, I think what's important, or one of the things that's important, is that while Lloyd was out making pretty much a hash of his career, Annette was home raising Daniel and being a mom, but she also took up photography and painting. And who would have known that this lawyer girl would have the soul and the sensitivities of an artist? I suppose Lloyd knew. And it's very hard, and it's hard to believe that we're all gathered here to say goodbye. Hello. Oh, I guess it is on. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I haven't played this song in public in about 30 years. Can you hear the guitar? I can't. Anyway, this between my decrepitude and my dystonia, this may sound like a gopher in a barbed wire fence. Well, I'll give you what I got. Come yesterday morning, they let me know you were gone. Suzanne, the plans they made put an end to you. I walked out this morning and I wrote down this song. Just can't remember who to send it to. Oh, I seen fire and I seen rain. I I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. You gotta look down upon me, Jesus. You gotta help me make a stand. Just gotta see me through another day. My body's aching and my time is at hand. I ain't gonna make it any other way. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you again. Been walking my mind to an easy time, my back turned towards the sun. Lord knows when the cold wind blows, it'll turn your head around. Always a time on the telephone line to talk about things to come. Sweet dreams and flying machines and pieces on the ground. Oh, I've seen fire and I've seen rain. I've seen sunny days that I thought would never end. I've seen lonely times when I could not find a friend. But I always thought that I'd see you, baby, one more time again.
I know people are looking at the height. Don't say anything about it. I think he's a bit sensitive about it. And now we ask Lloyd and Daniel together to talk about their beautiful wife and mother respectively. Thank you, Lloyd and Daniel.
Dad and I are going to highlight some of the qualities that made Mum such a special and beautiful person. The first one being that she was really creative. One of the most important things in Mum's life was photography, and she took great pride in this. Photographers are very special people. They preserve life's great memories in ways the mind cannot do. Mum took great pride in the beauty and satisfaction of making photo books for family and friends, and always loved to see people's reactions as they turned to each page and saw the wonderful photos. If you were lucky enough to have one of the books, you know what I'm talking about. Even though I've been photographed more times than Kim Kardashian, which at times can get annoying, I'm so thankful for the bundles of books that Mum has made for Dad and I, and over 300,000 plus photos that she has taken. I will certainly cherish them forever and continue to take more photos using her camera.
Another word to describe Annette is smart. We met in Chicago, as you've heard, in 1988. Annette was attending the University of Chicago. She was the first Danish student ever to do graduate study at that university, which with Harvard and Yale was rated the top law school in the United States. Barack Obama commenced teaching constitutional law there 2 years after Annette finished her master's degree. Annette worked so hard to get her master's degree from that very demanding university. Imagine doing a challenging course like that in a second language. Annette actually spoke 5 languages fluently. She spoke Danish, English, German, French and Swedish. She worked for top law firms in Chicago and in Australia. And in Australia, her clients included Mars Incorporated. And one of her favourite cases for Mars was travel.